everybody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
Today, I'm going to teach you guys how to draw any name in graffiti in a few minutes or less. And for this, all you're going to need is a pencil of your choosing, whether it's more mechanical or just an ordinary pencil, a sketchbook to draw in, an eraser to help you fix any mistakes you might make, and something to outline with. Here we have an outlining pen, which is a Pigma Graphic 1, but you can use anything that you have access to, like a Sharpie marker or anything similar. I'll have some links in the description down below for some great supplies. Now to get started, we're going to hop on over to the iPad. That way it's a little bit easier to demonstrate multiple things, but you're going to go into your sketchbook, you're going to pick the word that you want to go ahead and write. In this case, we're writing art for the artist block. So to start, we're going to write our first letter, kind of like we normally would, except it's going to be much larger, and we're going to make sure that it's a little wide. That way we can sketch around this in the later steps. Leaving a little bit of space between the first and the second letter, you're going to then write the second letter. And following the same step, you're going to leave a little space between the second letter and the third letter, and then you're going to write the third letter. You'll do this until you finish your word that you've chosen. And by the end of it, you should be left with a little something like that. Be sure to sketch that part pretty lightly. That way in the future, we can go ahead and erase it, because the next step is we're going to go ahead and outline this like so, drawing these rectangular shapes around each line of our letter. Now, when doing these rectangular shapes, try and make sure that you have the same amount of space between this side and this side of your rectangle. That way your shape will look nice and consistent all the way around. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be exact, but the closer you get to that, the more consistent the letter is going to look. Continue that process all the way around, and you should end up with something like this. And now that we have the name sketch out, you can see why we left spaces between each letter as we were writing them. By doing that, we've left enough room for the rectangle shapes to be close enough together without interfering with one another too much. At this point, you can make any adjustments to the actual outer structure that we just drew. So if you want something a little bit bigger, if you want something a little bit smaller, now's the time to go ahead and do that. You can also begin to erase the letters that we initially wrote. And we can also erase the overlapping sections that we'd like to exclude. For example, we erased this portion of the T, and we erased this portion of the R. But if you wanted to, you could have also erased this part of the A and this part of the R instead. At this point, you have the base for your piece. You can add little tiny extensions if you wanted to, stuff like that. You can taper parts of your piece as well to make certain parts bigger than what they ordinarily were. And you could also bend structures if you really wanted to. Remember though, if you're doing any of those details, try not to break the letter structure when doing that. Now, if you want a more in-depth tutorial on how to sketch your graffiti, then check out this video up here in the cards, and it'll be linked in the description down below as well. And while we're at it, if you really want to learn graffiti and all of its fundamentals, check out the book we went ahead and published. It's the only one on the market that covers each one of graffiti's fundamentals in ridiculous amounts of depth. And we have hundreds of images to demonstrate each lesson in the book, making it perfect for new graffiti artists and experienced graffiti artists alike. Pick up a digital copy on our online store, theartistblock.inc, and use this coupon code for 10% off your entire order. Or pick up a physical copy over on Amazon. Both of those are linked in the description down below. Now that we have the base of the letters down pat, we can choose to add drop shadow or 3D. Starting with drop shadow, if we want to go ahead and draw that, all we're doing is we're drawing the same exact letter that we already drew, but instead we're going to choose a direction to put that letter in. So let's say we want to go ahead and do drop shadow. We'll go ahead and decide, all right, we want our shadow to go down and to the left. That means we're going to draw the same exact structure that we have here, down and to the left, leaving us with something like that. The more consistent you are with that, the better off your drop shadow is going to look. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to go ahead and do our next letter like this, because this shadow would be going in a different direction than our previous one, as it's going down and to the right. And by the end of it, we should end up with a little something like this. If you'd like a full in-depth tutorial for how to draw a drop shadow, then check out this video up here, and I also have it linked in the description down below. Now, if we want to do 3D, it's a very similar process to where we're going to choose a consistent direction for our 3D to travel in. We're going to choose down and to the right. So we're going to go to every single vertex, and we're going to draw a line down and to the right. Now, we want to make sure that this line is consistent every single time we draw it. We want it to be the same direction and a very similar, if not the same length. So when we go to our next vertex, it's down and to the right, and we're going to try to get that same length and angle once again. We'll come here, and you'll notice this one comes inside the letter structure. So we're not going to keep this one because we can't see it, and we'll just continue to do that. If you have a little inconsistency in the length of the 3D, that's workable. It's not too bad. But if you have inconsistency with the direction, then things get a bit finicky. As you'll see here, I'll go ahead and I'll demonstrate. If we start doing stuff like this, well, then you can see how this would cause an issue with our 3D. That doesn't really look all that good. So we want to make sure that our lines and our angles are as consistent as possible. For lines like this rounded portion here on the R, when I was learning 3D, it helped me to draw the 3D line consistent around that bend until we got to a point like this right here, where we would see the line start to disappear behind the letter as we're seeing now. It's at that point you wouldn't see these lines, so you knew where to draw your 3D, making it really easy and consistent to get that 3D line. Once once you've done that all the way across the letters, you can just connect these dots. And by the end of it, you should have something like that. Now, if you're interested in a full in-depth tutorial for how to draw 3D, then I've got you covered right here with this video. And of course, it's linked in the description as well. Once you have it all sketched out with your letter structure and the drop shadow or 3D, depending on which one you chose, you can go ahead and outline it. Now, for outlining, it really helps me to pull the pen towards myself. Some people find it a little bit easier and a little bit more comfortable to actually move the marker or pen away from their body. So I recommend pulling up a separate piece of paper and testing out different lines for yourself. See what you find more comfortable. See if you find it easier to push the pen or marker away or pull it closer to yourself. And once you have that done, you can erase the sketch underneath. And of course, we can fill it in, and you can color it whatever you want. You can color it black or any color that you like most. From there, color your graffiti the way that you want to as well, and you finished your first piece. Now, that method right there works great for somebody who's quite literally just dipping their toes into graffiti, but there's a lot of problems with this method of sketching graffiti that could lead to problems down the line. What are some of the things that you should be looking out for? For starters, we don't know exactly how much space to put between each letter, and this could lead to some inconsistency within your actual graffiti between one letter to the next. Maybe two letters end up overlapping quite a bit, and then another two end up not overlapping quite a bit. Another issue I commonly see with this method is that we can very easily run out of space as we don't really get to plan our space effectively. This is more of a problem for longer names and less of a problem for shorter names, but it is very possible for us to start our word here, leave a little bit of space, do our next letter, leave a little bit of space, do our next letter, and then by the end of it, we don't have enough room for our last letter. Meaning now we have to erase all those previous letters and then start over again. And one of the biggest drawbacks to this method is that the anatomy of our letters doesn't really line up the way that it needs to in many areas. Because as you see, this vertex here, this line, and this line right here, all three of those should line up perfectly with one another. And as you can see right there, they don't really line up. And that's all because of how we sketched it initially, by sketching the actual print letter first and then building around that. Another downside to using this method is that we don't really establish our baseline, our mean line, or our cap line, which can lead to very unbalanced and uneven letters. And if your intention is to really learn graffiti, then all of these problems discussed here are going to lead to massive problems later down the line if the sketching method that we taught today becomes a habit. So really what we want to do is we want to use the sketching method more as an entry point, more as a way to kind of get used to just doing letters in general on a larger scale, but also as a way to get comfortable doing what's called our basic boxes, to help us gain a general idea of how this feels and how this looks to go ahead and draw. And if you'd like to learn the basic boxes method of sketching graffiti, check out this video right here. It'll hold your hand through the entire process of the basic boxes and show you how to really use it. And this playlist right up here is an amazing tutorial playlist. It'll teach you everything you need to know about graffiti. And don't forget, we have our book in the description down below that teaches you all of graffiti's fundamentals in a ridiculous amount of depth. As always, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys back here next week.